Welcome to Sales Comp Decoded, the show where we explore the stories behind how companies pay people to sell. I am Abimbola. In our last episode, we looked at how much financial risk a single salesperson should carry. We discussed why variable pay should always reflect the amount of actual control a person has over the sales outcome rather than just forcing them to absorb general business uncertainty. Today's topic shifts from the split of the risk to the mechanics of the reward. We are talking about the curve that made sellers stop at targets. Specifically, we are looking at what happens to variable pay as performance rises and why a plan explicitly designed to reward success can sometimes make further selling feel entirely pointless. Picture a seller who reaches 100% of their targets with 3 full weeks still left in the quarter. They have delivered exactly what the company expected, earned their target commission, and still have several viable opportunities sitting in the pipeline. Leadership naturally expects them to continue. Their manager wants one final push. Finance would welcome the additional revenue, but the seller looks at the compensation plan and asks a highly practical question. What is the next deal actually worth to me? And the answer is disappointing. The commission rate barely changes after targets. The next meaningful accelerator does not begin until and reaching that milestone in 3 weeks feels statistically impossible. So, to make matter worse, perhaps the plan also contains a hard cap that limits total payouts anyway. The seller does not stop working completely, but their urgency changes. A deal that could have closed this quarter is allowed to drift into the next one. An opportunity requiring extra effort no longer feels worth pursuing immediately. Leadership may call this sandbagging, the deliberate delaying of business into a future period. And sometimes it is. But before blaming the seller, the company should look closely at its own payout curve. The curve itself may have made stopping at target the most sensible financial choice on the board. But what is the payout curve? A payout curve shows how earning changes as performance moves from below target through 100% and into overperformance. If you imagine performance moving from left to right along a graph where earnings rise upward, the shape of that line tells a story. A straight linear line means pay increases at roughly the same pace throughout. A line that bends upward and becomes steeper above targets means each additional sale becomes increasingly valuable. Conversely, a line that flattens out sends the exact opposite message. That is, additional performance produces less additional reward. The seller may never see the actual mathematical graph, but they experience its shape every single day through the threshold, commission rates, accelerators, and cap. And together, these mechanics communicate what happens when they fall behind, approach target, exceed it, or deliver an exceptional result. A strong, well-designed curve keeps giving people a clear reason to move forward, while a weak one can make early efforts feel completely worthless, create sudden inequalities between people with similar results, or even turn targets into a natural stopping point. That is why the curve must be designed deliberately rather than just inherited from last year's spreadsheets. Let us begin below targets at the start of the curve. Many plans include a threshold, which is the minimum level of performance someone must reach before variable pay begins. The business often uses a threshold because performance below a certain level does not create enough value to justify a full commission payout. On paper, that can be entirely reasonable. The problem appears when that threshold creates a sharp, unforgiving cliff. Imagine a plan where no commission is earned below 70% of targets. One seller finishes the quarter at 69%, another reaches 71%. Their actual commercial performance is almost identical, but their earnings completely different. The seller just below the line receives zero variable pay, while the person just above it suddenly unlocks a significant retroactive payment. That sharp difference can create extreme urgency for someone who is close enough to cross the threshold. But now imagine a third seller sitting at 45% late in the quarter. If 70% feels mathematically impossible, the current period already appears financially lost. Instead of pushing every opportunity forward, that seller will actively begin protecting strong deals, holding them back for the next quarter. The threshold was intended to protect the company from paying for weak performance, yet it inadvertently creates a zone where extra effort has absolutely no immediate value. This does not mean every plan should pay commission from the first dollar of sale. The company simply needs to decide what level of performance begins creating meaningful value and whether the journey towards that point still gives the seller a reason to keep progressing. 100% of targets is the anchor of your entire curve. It is the exact point where the seller earns their full target variable pay. More importantly, it represents the level of performance the company expects from a capable person doing the role well. Target should therefore be demanding, but it must be believable. If reaching 100% requires an absolute miracle or an exceptional year where everything goes perfectly, the target is no longer functioning as an expected performance level. It has become an excellence point disguised as a normal quota. And when that happens, the accelerator above target loses all of its psychological power. Sellers do not pay attention to rewards they believe they will never reach. The opposite problem can happen too. If nearly everyone reaches target easily, the standard payout begins to feel like guaranteed salary, while ordinary performance earns reward intended only for stronger results. The rest of the curve only works when target itself is credible. So before deciding what happens at 110 or 125%, the company needs real confidence that a capable seller has a realistic path to 100% achievement. Now, let's return to our seller who has reached target with 3 weeks left in the quarter. This is the exact moment where an accelerator should pull them forward. An accelerator increases the rate of pay after a defined performance point. The idea is simple. Once the seller exceeds the expected results, the fixed costs of the businesses are covered and each additional sale becomes more profitable for the company, so the seller gets a bigger piece. But an accelerator only influences behavior when it is both meaningful and reachable. Imagine two sellers, who have each reached 100%. The first seller's commission rate increases immediately on the very next dollar they bring in. The second seller's rate stays flat until they cross 120%. The first person sees an immediate financial reason to keep running. The second person faces a long, flat stretch of highway before the next reward appears. If the remaining opportunities in their pipeline are uncertain, that second seller will decide that closing them next quarter offers vastly better value for their time. The business sees delayed revenue and complain about a lack of drive, while the seller sees a perfectly sensible decision about income timing. A plan may advertise unlimited earnings, but if the next milestone feels too far away, or if the accelerator increases the rates by such a tiny amount that a difficult deal pays barely more than an easy one, the practical upside is limited. The seller always judges the plan by what the next deal will actually pay them. How that accelerator applies matters just as much as the rate itself. Some plans use a gradual tiered approach where the higher rate applies only to performance above the accelerator points. For example, the seller earns a 5% commission up to targets and an 8% commission only on the specific sales made after that point. That creates a relatively smooth, predictable increase. Other plans create a retroactive jump. Once the seller crosses a particular point, the higher commission rate suddenly applies to all the revenue they generated from $1. This is often called a step up or a retroactive accelerator. On paper, it looks incredibly motivating because crossing that line triggers a massive sudden payout. But look at the behavior it creates. A seller close to that step-up point would do almost anything to cross it, including offering deep unauthorized discounts or pulling forward bad business just to trigger the retroactive payouts. Conversely, a seller who realizes they cannot make the jump will stop dead in their tracks. Sudden jump in a payout curve create volatile behavior. They cause massive spikes in activity followed by long period of total inactivity. Smooth curves, on the other hand, reward continuous steady progression. They ensure that every dollar brought in is worth slightly more than the last, without creating artificial cliffs or maniac rushes at the end of a quarter. Ultimately, the payout curve is the blueprint of your sales culture. If your curve flattens out, creates unreachable steps, or punishes minor misses with financial ruin, your seller will adapt. They will stop at targets, they will sandbag, and they will manage their pipeline around your mechanics rather than customer needs. When you design a curve, you aren't just modeling financials in a spreadsheet. You are mapping human motivation. Every bend, threshold, and acceleration point dictates where a woman will choose to spend their Tuesday morning. Thank you for listening to Sales Comp Decoded. I am Abimbola. If today's episode helped you look at your payout structure differently, subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with your revenue leadership team.